Hello, and welcome to another edition of Here We Are. I'm your host, Tia Mugabe, and in this edition, we're going to talk about the U.S. and its policy toward Haitian refugees. My guests today are Mr. Lionel Barbarouse, who's the Consul General for Haiti here in Chicago. My next guest is Mr. A.D. Moyer, who is the Director of INS here in Chicago. Before we talk to our guests, we have a report from L.S. Mugabe.
The ouster of Haiti's elected president, John Beltran Aristide, by a violent military coup has caused many Haitians to take to the sea. Many of the boats that the Haitians are traveling in are filled beyond their authorized capacity, causing deaths to many Haitians. These Haitians are trying to get to the United States, some for safety reasons and some for economic reasons, just as any other immigrant. The Haitians were being intercepted by the U.S. Coast Guard and returned to Haiti. After the military coup, the number of Haitians wanting to leave Haiti grew. New steps were taken by the U.S. government to take the Haitians as refugees to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Haitians could be returned to Haiti. The U.S. sees the Haitians as economic refugees, even though there are reports that those Haitians that are being returned to Haiti face a very uncertain future at the hands of the military government. Refugees that are returned are given $15 by the International Red Cross. For Here We Are, this is L.S. Mugabe.
We're back with our guests. Uh, to get some understanding of Haiti, for those who don't know, it would probably be important for you to give us a brief background up to this point, very brief, of, um, of Haiti, a little history, and pretty much where it is now today.
So how brief do you want it?
Well, don't go back to like BC. Let's kind of,
No, we'll
no,
start with the independence, right?
independence, correct.
Okay. Like we probably I can say that Haiti is the second independent nation in the American hemisphere. We had our independence in 1804 after a long struggle. In 1791, August the 22nd, we had a big gathering of the slaves, and they decided that night that they were going to fight for their freedom. And from then on, we have some good generals from from our army, just like Toussaint Louverture started it. Then after that, we have Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Henri Christophe, and Pétion, who, by the way, they call the father of Pan-Americanism,
Okay.
because he helped the other countries like Bolivia, Colombia, all the Latin American countries to get their independence. Then after that, we have the country was isolated till 1862, right after your civil war here in America, because the uprising of the slave in Haiti was a bad precedent for the other slave owners. And the European countries where slave masters come, they also didn't want to have that virus spread all over their colonies. So Haiti was isolated. And after the blacks become emancipated in the United States, there was no reason. Then we knew our tie with Haiti and this country, United States. And Frederick Douglass was, I think, the first ambassador of the United States toward Haiti. So, and in 1915, there were a lot of turmoil, just like we have now. The American government had decided to send the Marines into Haiti, and they stayed there from 1915 to 1929. They call it in Haiti the era of occupation, American occupation. By that time, they built the army we have now, and they make some improvement, road, sanitation, thing like that, and schooling, schooling too. And that's why some people do still put the blame on the army, and they said United States is responsible for the army they have down there.
The army they have now, you're talking about.
That's right, because
we're going to get into that.
They think they try to correlate the birth of this army as from the fatherhood, and the father is United States of America.
I'm going to ask you your opinion on that, and what do you think? Does that statement have any validity? But to focus in on what's happened within recent years there, they had a turning over government where they had their first democratic elections. And I wanted you to talk about that, and then the events that followed afterwards.
Okay, we can go from the beginning where in 1946 we have some kind of uprising. The middle class, the tiny middle class we have in Haiti, composed mostly of, we can say, pure African Haitian.
What about the wealthy? Because, okay, you say there's a small middle class, so large, wealthy, and even larger, poor. I'm trying to get the...
That's a nice picture.
That's a nice picture.
A very nice picture I can project to you now. Recently, they just said that these 200 families in Haiti control about 67% of the wealth of the country.
Okay.
So there's 200 families, that's the rich people. They are educated in Europe, mostly, and some of them are European, either first generation or second generation. We have some from Northern Africa, Lebanese, Syrian, from some people from Israel too in Haiti.
That constitute the wealth.
Elite, the wealthy, and the well-to-do. And by the way, most of them, and that's become very peculiar in Haiti, maybe you won't be able to understand, but that, yeah, light-skinned people, and just like you see with the boat people, they are mostly dark-skinned people, very dark. Sometimes they said, are you Asian? I said, yes, but how come you are not like the boat people? But now I'm in the middle, probably I'm from the middle class. And we have 85% of the population are still living in the countryside, and most of them are illiterate. We have 15% of people who went to school, and most of those 15%, no, let's say about 10% of those speak French or use French fluently. And we have two official languages in Haiti, French and Haitian, Creole. The Creole is spoken 100% in Haiti, and the French, which I just told you, only 15% of the population use it.
Okay. Now, to get back to the election part of it, it was a democratically held election, whereas one person, one vote, correct? Because of the population breakdown, there were more of the non-elite than they were the elite. So you have this new regime, if you will, of government in there. Then, with that, it caused problems. I kind of wanted you to focus in on the situation that happened that started the coup, and we'll start from there, and then we'll get to other points.
All right, because the coup started before the election. Why? I mentioned before 1946 that the first time you have a black, somebody from the countryside, he was a peasant, he was a state representative from the countryside, and he became the president of Haiti. To the people of Haiti, that was a revolution, but he represented the middle class. That means the people who have little money, get some profession, and can speak French. That means about 15% of the population. His name was Dumas Estimé, and since then, the middle class said, we are going to be the leader of this country. But usually, what they are the front for the elite. Because they don't have the money, so the businessmen, the industrialists, and the better educated, light-skinned people, they are the ones who really was the power behind the throne. And but what happened in 1957, François Duvalier, who was a medical doctor and who was a minister of health under Estimé in 46, became the president of Haiti. And as many presidents before him, he decided to be president for life. He stayed in power for 15 years. And at his death, his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, became the president because he had the right to name his own successor. By that time, something happened in Haiti. One, the people from the countryside moved literally from the mountain and the plantation. They come to the cities because the government was so inept and corrupt. There was no way to provide them food or wealth or education. So they do move. And he wanted to use those people to maintain his power and to frighten the bourgeoisie or the elite. So that's what François Duvalier, that was his policy. But he made a big migration of people from the countryside to the cities. But people who used to live in the cities, like my father, had to go to Africa for 20 years. He left Haiti in 1962 and spent 20 years in Zaire as a teacher. My mother, as a nurse, had to live in Zaire and come to in Chicago. And you have many, the whole middle class shift from the cities to abroad, mostly to the United States.
Okay. After the situation that we are getting to is a situation where after the overthrow of the president, you had thousands of Haitians come to Cuba to try to seek asylum in the United States. And this is maybe where you want to step in now. Mr. Moore, you've been sitting over there quietly.
Yeah, because he knows about it. He knows about it because he's handling some of them there. Because I don't know, you said you've been here for 10 years?
10 years.
10 years. So you had to see a lot of people. So now when people like my members, the middle class left Haiti, and Jean-Claude Duvalier took power, in 1986, there is a commotion in Haiti, and they have, Jean-Claude was exiled, taken from Haiti, and he's still living in France. And they have, from 1986 till 1990, they are trying to have an election. But one military leader after another succeeded in power. And finally, with the help of the United Nations and the OAS organization, as observer, we had the first free democratic election in Haiti.
Okay.
That was the first.
Okay, now it leads up to this point. Okay, afterwards, like I said, after the election, the president, Mr. Aristide, is overthrown. He, and then that, caused influx of Haitians to come to Cuba for asylum in the United States. Now, it appears that President Bush, U.S. government, turned their back on the Haitians.
Very simplistic.
Huh?
What you said is the truth.
They turned
but
their
it's
back.
part of the truth,
Okay.
because now you got to know why. It wasn't so simplistic. It's quite complicated process.
It's quite okay, but before we get to that, I want to talk more about when they were in Cuba. And like I said, this is where you may come in as far as the procedures that you took, that you were instrumental in, as far as them being in Cuba.
Very good. Well, basically what was happening, there were many Haitians trying to come directly to the United States. But that is quite a long journey. Cuba is closer. And there was also safe haven for them when they were landing on the tip of Cuba, known as Guantanamo. Guantanamo is, as we know, a part of the island of Cuba that is under the control of the United States. And it was rather used as a staging area, if you will, where screening could be done with respect to claims for asylum in the United States. One thing that is interesting, I think, that you can't discuss refugees, you can't discuss asylum without understanding what the law says about how determinations.
That was my next
if
question.
I could spend just
For a moment to give us what the
discussing.
guidelines for that would be.
Basically, before 1980, the United States was not signatory to the United Nations Accord with respect to the definition of what is a refugee. And prior to 1980, virtually all the refugees in the United States, very simply put, came from communist countries. And if you didn't come from one of the communist countries, communist-controlled countries, your chances of being granted asylum or refugee status in the United States was very, very small. But we became signatory and adopted the United Nations definition of refugee. And in so doing, in one way, limited ourselves greatly, because the categories that are permitted to come here as refugees or be granted asylum in the United States is very specific and very narrow. And what that accord says is basically that a person who is here in the United States or coming to the United States who is able to substantiate a well-founded fear of persecution if they were to be returned to their home country can be granted asylum or refugee status. But the categories in which they have to qualify are very narrow. It has to be persecution based upon political belief, on race, on religion, on ethnic origin, or in membership in groups or organizations.
Okay.
And if it exceeds that, if it is based upon something else that they fear persecution, it does not qualify to come to the United States as a refugee or under asylum. So this is the definition that we were applying all the time in Guantanamo to the Haitians and to everyone else. It's a standard that is applied to all individuals irrespective of what part of the world, whether or not they come from a communist-controlled part of the world or from other free areas.
Oh, I have a question with that. Okay, so in reports, okay, not just here in the country, but reports from abroad, where refugees literally saying that, you know, I fear for my life going back home. There'll be serious repercussions for us returning because we were supporters of the regime, you know, at the elections of 1990. I mean, now you were telling me the stipulations that, you know, are the guidelines they must fall under. One of them would be because of their political beliefs, they would feel some type of pressure. Okay, well, the question I have then is, then why so many would turn back? Because a lot of them, the majority of them were saying that, you know, this is why I can't go back home, because I fear for my life, the life of my family.
Well, possibly if I could draw a distinction between two different types of refugees. And by no means am I wanting to put all Haitians in a group that is often expressed just referring to Haitians as economic refugees.
Okay.
We know that is not true, and for that reason, many Haitians have been granted asylum in the United States. But what happens in this process is that from various parts of the world, which are, I don't want to necessarily say war-torn, but where you have individuals who are coming from a situation like Haiti, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Nicaragua, other places where there has been an armed conflict, an armed struggle. There is a fear of returning, a very definite fear of returning to their home country because of the conditions in that home country. But the conditions in that home country do not specifically relate to that individual and anything that they have done that is sufficient to say, okay, because of your political belief, because of your political activism, because of the role that you played in the elections, either in promoting a candidate or running for office yourself, or simply speaking out on behalf of something or against something, you would be persecuted. If they cannot prove that, they cannot be granted asylum. It is not enough to say that I am a member of a group that is being persecuted, if in fact you would not be singled out as an individual and persecuted upon your return home. Let me give you an example of one group in recent history, which we were able to identify that simply because they were part of a group, we knew they would be persecuted if they were returned home. And these were the Baha'is, people of the Baha'i faith from Iran. After Iran came under the current government, there was open and active persecution of all individuals of that faith. So we were able to make kind of a blanket determination on behalf of those individuals. But that's the exception. The rule is generally and almost exclusively that these cases have to be adjudged on an individual, case-by-case basis as to what would happen to that person if they return home, but most specifically, why. why would that happen? Would it be because of one of the 5 categories that I enumerated, or would it be something else? If it's not one of those 5, our laws are very limiting with respect to approving one for asylum.
Another question. Okay, you said that each individual case they would have to show some form of proof. Now, in other reports, like I said, I get these out of reports where it says that different members of Parliament feel the same way as far as harassment. Okay, how does the U.S. Department of Affairs go about gathering this type of information, saying, well, our studies conclude that it is not unsafe you return to your homeland because of political repercussions, things of that nature? How do you gather your information for that?
Well, there are several sources that are good. The best source, not the best source, but one of the best sources, comes from individuals who are right there, people who can give direct testimony, individuals who can testify on behalf of another person that this happened to other people in similar circumstances. We are aware of threats that have been made to this individual, etc. That is always excellent information because it's very specific and it relates to that one person. But also we get the reports from the U.S. State Department, which keeps its thumb on the pulse of the goings-on in various countries. Also, Amnesty International produces a report which gives country conditions all around the world, and it's not specific with respect to an individual, but it tells you groupings of individuals that are subject to persecution in the type, and if the individual that we're talking with comes from that group, then we can start to get more specific as to how a situation would relate to them. But Amnesty International, also there's an individual group in Switzerland that does the similar type of monitoring, that we listen to recommendations that they make. But also the press is very good. I have found, after having been in this business for a number of years, that the press and records from the press can be very persuasive with respect to an individual or group of individuals. If they track, as an example, what has been happening to a person, arrests that have been made, imprisonment for political reasons, reports of various types of and I'm not speaking of Haiti here specifically, I'm speaking general, but various types of reactions from governments. The use of torture, the use of intimidation, the use of threat, the withholding of education, the withholding of jobs,
so if you don't see
housing. All of these kinds of things quite often are to be found in newspaper reports, magazine reports that are both international but also that come from that country.
Did you want to comment on anything that he said?
Yes, I would like to make some comment on that. First of all, definitely the Haitian refugees are at disadvantage to the type of monitoring you put on. First of one, they are not educated, therefore there is no record. They cannot produce any piece of evidence that they have been harassed or persecuted or mistreated by the army or by the government, the de facto government. Second, the press cannot go into Haiti and track down the returnee or people who have been prosecuted in Haiti. For the simple reason the military will never allow it. Can you imagine, it never happened in any country, to my knowledge, that in the first 3 days of the coup, more than 3,000 people died. And now they told me people who are living in Haiti, and reliable person just like Amnesty International, they said it can go as high as 13,000 people have been killed for the past, after the coup.
There are also reports that saying that people are missing,
all the time.
That's happening.
And this, if you send any newspapers, they get a place they call Titanien, they dump the bodies, sometimes with decapitated bodies. And they are there, it is everyday occurrence up to today. So, and you don't know who they put there. And that's exactly where the Haitian people, when they return them, without enough investigation, because there is one element in the picture as far as Haitian is concerned. People can come from Iran or Afghanistan or someplace else, even from Nicaragua. They are here. They have been admitted in the United States. They make an investigation. But for Haiti, they don't do that because as they come to this flimsy boat, they come here, they put in a Coast Guard cutter. Therefore, they give them an hearing sometimes on the boat, and they return them back in Haiti.
So what you're saying is they get to the gate.
Because they have a contract between the former Haitian government in 1981 or 1982, they call it the interdiction
Yes, on the high seas.
agreement. They capture you in the high sea, they question you for 5 minutes or 10 minutes without any witness, and they decided on the boat that you are not qualified for asylum. That's make it unfair to the Haitian.
Okay, well, let me ask you, you said something for a second, and I wanted to create an analogy, and you can tell me if this is a correct analogy. What you're saying is when these people come in to investigate, they go to the gate, the gatekeepers tell you that things are fine, and then they leave? I'm trying to think, is that what you were saying, or maybe I misunderstood you?
When you say those people, the American investigators?
Yeah.
They did that, probably, I don't know if Mr. Moyo knows about it, but they did it in, Guantanamo. They did it on the boat, that they give you 5 minutes hearing, and the person who questioning you, first, that person is supposed to have the knowledge of the language. The Haitian language is a recent language, as far as we put it as with grammar and dictionary. Not too many people are fluent in Creole, if you are American. And those American we have, or sometimes they hire Haitian, but the Haitian they hire belong to the former regime. So they have no, of course, they want those people to go back. So I mean, again, maybe you don't know about it.
No,
Yeah, that's what
I will
happened.
acknowledge that we have a tremendous need for individuals who can speak Creole, because it is not people that speak and understand French cannot necessarily
No,
be
not at all.
good in conducting interviews in Creole. I think that most Haitians could understand French, but yet the vice versa is not necessarily true. But one thing that the U.S. government was experiencing, continues to experience, is that an overwhelming situation with respect to the individuals coming. In a mass exodus like that, it is extremely difficult to get to the bottom of every case. And about the only alternative, which is not a proper alternative, was just to completely open the gates to anyone who wanted to leave Haiti to come here and then to prosecute their claim for asylum after coming into the United States. There had to be a mechanism to slow down the process, because I don't know what percentage of individuals would want to leave Haiti, but certainly at least until the situation is clarified politically and until there is a considerable improvement in the economy, I'm sure that a lot would like to find a temporary home in the United States. But to attempt to manage this problem through the asylum process starts to become almost an impossibility when you're talking about thousands upon thousands and thousands of people. Our experience with the Mariel boat lift out of Cuba in 1980 showed that once the gate swings wide open and once anyone can come that the home government will allow to leave, and at that time in 1980, although Fidel Castro was very specific as to who could leave and who couldn't leave, he allowed about 130,000 people to leave in just a couple of weeks' time. And I can tell you that personally, I was at that time I was in charge of the Cuban refugee camp at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, and we were receiving many thousands daily, and our system was completely overwhelmed in terms of being able to accommodate, to establish housing, to properly care for the health and daily needs of people. And later, we actually got into the process of adjudicating claims for asylum, and to figure out who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, under the several factors that we have to consider. So we can't let our system just completely collapse because there is an overwhelming problem in any particular area that the American system collapses and can no longer perform.
Yes, I do understand that you're supposed to protect the collapsing of the American system, but at the same time, what is more important, the safeguard of somebody's life or the protection of the system? Especially those Haitians, if they put them in a place in Miami, for example, they will have time to question them maybe 2 days, 2 weeks after they've been in the United States and get the proper amount of Haitian or a translator necessary to conduct the investigation. That's where the flaw to me was, from the beginning, was really unfavorable to the Haitian. And that's why I make it so much hard on the families. And now we have a lot of comment that there is people that have been admitted, but the children, 2 years old or 5 years old, are probably in Maryland. The mothers are in Illinois, and the fathers are somewhere in Florida. Those families are totally disbanded.
Yes.
I don't even know of it.
This can happen, and once again, this is what happens when a system is flooded, when a system is not adequately prepared or adequately staffed because of the tremendous dimensions of the problem that exists. I mean, in a sense, fortunately, in another sense, unfortunately, this is not presented to the United States from all countries of the world. Quite frankly, it's only thus far been in the Caribbean countries that, in the island countries that we've had a situation that tends to overwhelm us. In the Western Hemisphere, although we've had very bad situations in El Salvador and Nicaragua, the flow of individuals from those countries was dissipated greatly by other countries that they had to pass through in order to get here.
Yeah.
Had to come through Guatemala, had to come through Mexico, and at those times and in those countries they could have also sought asylum. In other words, those were actually their first countries. So we didn't have quite the impact that these boat lifts have had on us.
I don't want to pound on the United States, but now we have the two examples. One happened when in Berlin, when the collapse of the wall in Berlin, people was going from the communist side to the democratic side by the thousand. But they were accepted. But now we have the same thing in Germany, where they accept people from Sarajevo, about more 2,000, 3,000 a day. But I don't think they have better means of processing over there than here. But I think we can do the effort. And they are doing the best to have to accommodate over 80,000 people already.
I don't know.
I think we could have done that here in the United States. I think we should be a human approach to the problem. Maybe 1, 2, or 5 Haitians would like to leave Haiti for economic reason. But we know that the first time in an election in Haiti, you have 70% of the population voted for one president, and they were all fanatical of him. And the army was determined to get rid of them. And that's why they killed over 13,000 of them.
I want to ask you, before we get too far off the subject, I want you to talk to me about the makeup of the army that's there now. You said, you gave a correlation that the reason why the army, a lot of the reason why the army is the way it is today is because of not the invasion, but because of the presence of American troops there years ago. So I just want you to talk to me about the development and the formation of the army that's there today. Because yes, part of the reason why they're having a lot of problems is because the army that's set up over there.
The army is brutal, but I will not say the army is brutal because it was made by or was trained by the American. Okay. Not at all, because the American army is not brutal. The army will never do what those people are doing in Haiti. But the army in Haiti behave like if they were fighting an enemy. In fact, at the academy in Haiti, they tell you every civilian is enemy of the soldier. That's in the book.
But they're supposed to protect.
That's what it should be, but on the contrary to what they say in any other country of the world, in Haiti, the civilian is the enemy.
The poor civilian, let's be more specific.
No, they put it that way blank. They said
the
civilian is the enemy of the military.
Do you feel that they are protecting the interest of the elite?
Exactly, but now they are protecting the interest of the elite.
Okay. More recently, they're protecting the
They've always been protecting the interest of the elite. Because at the beginning, people who become officers in the army, they were children of the elite families. Now, under Duvalier, they become other people, but those people have been subservient to the elite families. Okay. So I can put the blame on anyone, but The army we have in Haiti is totally against the civilian because they are trained to be against civilian. They consider to be enemy. The second, this army is a corrupt army because there is a breach in the army under the Duvalier. They behave not as a professional army, they become as warlords army. Each colonel or each general, they have 500 or 600 people under their command. They can get into the drug dealing business just like Noriega did. And we have most of the colonel and general in Haiti now. They are making what? $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Each one of them, or the general, they own the family home. A family home worth about $500,000 to $600,000. They got Mercedes-Benz, 5 or 6 cars, 20 refrigerators, pools, and everything. And we know that. If you go to Haiti, you will see all those beautiful houses in the mountain.
Right, that's
I went to Haiti, I found private soldiers in the army. They have Toyota Cressida, and their wife have a Toyota Cressida. And those they are only making $30 a month as a soldier. That's when they are pushing drugs in Haiti. Those people, they are the ones who are killing the people. They don't want any change in Haiti because that's their livelihood. The army is a mafia in Haiti. By saying that now, if I go to Haiti, I am in
won't be
jeopardy.
well liked.
And that's what happened to the Haitian refugees. They consider every single one Haitian. When you leave Haiti, you go to abroad. When you go back, you are an enemy because first of all, you see freedom, you experience democracy, and you had time to express yourself and say what's going on down there. So then they have to punish you for that.
What, in your opinion, and both of you can answer this, has to be done there to rectify the situation? Well, okay, to equalize it, I should say. You know, like we talked about before, you have a population that's rich, a smaller population that's poor, and a large population, that's middle class, a smaller population that's middle class, and a large population that is poor. And you would think that a country should have a government that reflects its citizens, you know. But as you said, that it's run by the elite. But what has to be done in order to change that?
I think it's very simple. Maybe, I know you may agree with me.
I'll give you both a chance to
it's
answer
very
that.
simple to me in Haiti. In 1987, 92% of the population went to vote to accept a referendum on the Constitution. And the Constitution, it was clearly said, we don't want the Macoute regime. The Macoute has been the killers and the drug dealers who've been ruling Haiti under the Duvaliers. 98% of the people who went to cast their vote voted for the Constitution. That means they want change, and they said no more iniquities. They want justice. And that's all. After accepting the Constitution, now they said, okay, we have an election. They are going to have an election in 1989, 2 years after the Constitution was voted. The army and the drug dealers, we have film to show that. I think probably the ambassador the American ambassador in Haiti have to notify the State Department about it, that the army and the drug dealers and renegades from the Tonton Macoute who used to be there as a thugs or boogeymen of the Duvalier regime, they went literally in all those polling places and shoot people point blank, 11 o'clock in the morning. TV was there. Even journalists from the Dominican Republic was there. One of them was killed. After that bloodshed, they canceled the election, so they had the second one. And on the second one, thanks to the supervision of the United Nations and the OAS, the Organization of Latin American States, we had an honest election. That day, the people again flood the cities, they flood the poll bank, and 70% of them vote for the President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. That means the people want one thing, they want justice, they want democracy. Hope is the president. So to resolve the problem of Haiti, get Aristide back in Haiti, there will be no problem. In fact, Aristide was in power for about 8 months.
Right.
From February 1991 till September 1991, there were at least only 2 boats leaving Haiti as a refugee to the United States. It was
Afterwards.
you see that there was no people who wanted to leave Haiti to come to the United States.
'Cause they felt
And the
change was
economic
coming.
situation was the same. It didn't have time to do anything, any change for the people. But they remained in there because they had safety, they think they had justice, and they had a lot of hope of change in Haiti. As soon as they got the coup happened, we have 37,000 people leaving Haiti. The correlation is clear. To me, it's not economical. It got to be political.
You want to make a comment, sir?
Well, I think the Consul General has been very eloquent and very accurate in what has to happen. What has to happen is, number one, justice, and justice can be realized in Haiti and other countries through democracy. But democracy has to be allowed to work. And during the last 10 years, we've seen democratization of a lot of Western Hemisphere countries.
There have been attempts.
Some it's worked better than others. But there has to be a faith from all the people that in fact democracy will serve all the people. Now, some people, if you're talking about the change from a dictatorial type of government or a militaristic type of government, certain people are going to be hurt by democracy because they're going to lose their power. And when they lose their power, they lose their wealth, they lose their access. However, I always have the feeling that the will of the masses of the people will ultimately prevail. It is my feeling that there is no government, legitimately formed or illegitimately formed, that can withstand the will of the people over a period of time.
The mass of people.
Because ultimately, the people, if they keep working toward what they want and what they need, and as what you have said, what is just, they will ultimately find that. We're seeing that in Europe in a very strange way right now. It happens so fast that we can hardly catch up with what we're experiencing in Europe. But in fact, the old systems started coming down, systems that we didn't think would come down possibly for years and years. But they are coming down, and they're coming down for one reason. You can look to people like Lech Walesa as a champion of the people, but he expressed the will of the people. And look what's happening in Poland now. Poland has a thriving economy. I was just speaking to someone who came back, said you would think that you're in Munich, you would think that you're in some thriving tourist city of Europe now when you go to Warsaw. These things will happen, and I think these things will happen in Haiti. The big problem for us right now is, what do we do in the meantime? How do we handle thousands of people who feel that the United States is their only hope for the moment? What we must do is we must address their hopes, their aspirations. They're searching for opportunity under the specific provisions of law, because otherwise all we can do is wave a magic wand. And we have waved a magic wand in some situations for some countries under provisions that have been known as temporary protected status, or EVD, extended voluntary departure. We have countries individuals from countries right now who have been given safe haven in the United States, short of asylum. Short of asylum until the home country situation is improved.
How many people, Sister Koo, since all these thousands of people have come over on the boat, how many Haitians have you accepted, a rough estimate, I should say, to your best of your knowledge, in the United States?
Well, you caught me short there. I don't have a firm number right now. It is several thousands. Most have been processed through Miami, Florida. Some originally through Guantanamo, others directly through Miami, Florida. And if you spend any time in Miami, you will see a very large and thriving Haitian community in Miami, Florida. Not that all of these individuals have come recently. They have not, because that community is very well established. But it is several thousands, and it is my understanding in prior conversation that our operations in Guantanamo are pretty much over with. There are only a few hundred people from Haiti that are remaining there at the present time.
I want to focus more back on the United States.
No, on that point, I think I don't have the exact numbers, but and to avoid confusion, out of the 37,000 who try to reach America for safe haven, the 3,500 have been accepted. And probably mostly they are in Miami now. Even in Chicago, I think we have about 87 now in Chicago, something like
87
that.
out of the
And
37.
I met about 200 in LA, and there are some in New York. They are scattered all over. When they reach down there, they give you a card. They said, okay, you can go to that place, and that's the only place they can live and work. Now they shift some to Chicago, some to other places, but they have no right to. This card cannot be useful anywhere else but Chicago, if they have to go for employment in the meantime. But I don't know. What I want to say is, but how many have been granted political asylum? Very, very few. Not even 1%. Not even 1% of them. But about the 3,500 accepted, they are here. Now they are going case by case to see. They have given them indication that they might be considered as
It was a two-stage process, basically. Those 3,500, or whatever the actual number is, were determined to have viable claims for asylum, and their claims would be adjudicated. Whether specifically they would qualify or not, that would be later determined, but at least it was thought that they had a basic case that needed to be heard and that they should not be sent back to Haiti until that case was heard.
So you're saying there's still a possibility that they could be sent back?
there's still a
after-
possibility,
Possibilities,
yes.
Okay.
Still exists.
Something that a lot of people don't realize that's interesting, although we're in accord with the United Nations Convention now in determining who is a refugee, who gets asylum, and who doesn't. Something very interesting that is in the United States. Once you have been approved for asylum, after 1 year, you are eligible for permanent residency in the United States. There are many countries in the world that will grant asylum possibly, maybe even easier than in the United States, but you can never become a permanent resident through that means. Here you can. It's a real stepping stone. And for this reason, we also have to be more careful about the burden of proof in the case, making sure that the person actually does have the basics.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, and if we make a mistake, we have in fact given that person permanent residency for life in the United States.
But at least we could have given safe haven protection here, short of that.
There is a provision for that, but that has to come in a blanket form, and the country would have to be enumerated under the provisions of temporary protected status. And I think currently we have 5, 6, or 7 countries that qualify for temporary protected status.
Okay, let's talk about, first of all, your reaction to President Bush, the U.S. government, sending the Haitians back. We kind of hit upon it, but, and then we kind of talked about it beforehand. You were talking, I asked the question, why is it that you don't really see it on television, or why it's not picked up, you know, on some syndicated news cable programs? And you brought up a very interesting point. And then also, this is kind of like twofold. None of the presidential candidates are talking about this, you know, this situation. And then you brought up another analogy as to why that was. So I guess the first question would be, you know, why is it that we're not seeing it so much? Is more in print, more so than it is in television, and why would the reason for that be?
Well, I don't see that many questions being asked by the media. Personally, I very seldom get that question. I've done a couple of radio programs here in Chicago recently dealing with this issue, comparing the Haitian situation to the Cuban situation as an example. But they're very specific, and they're very narrow in terms of the application of the concept of asylum with respect to Haiti. I don't see a large I don't want to say interest. It just doesn't seem to be the thrust of the media. The media does not seem to be identifying the U.S. policies with respect to Haiti as a major election year issue.
As a media person, what do you think? The media goes after publicity, rating, money, right? if the Haitian community doesn't generate enough money, probably that could be one of the reasons. How do you think?
You know, that was another question I wanted to ask, and I didn't know if anybody wanted to touch it. But one question I had, and I guess it kind of focuses back on Haiti, you know, what is the level of political or economic interest does the United States have in that country? Because we could talk about in Russia, since the things, the breakdown that's happened in Russia. Well, yeah, of course, America would have a higher interest in Russia because they have a lot of resources that America wants. They want to be allies with them. They have money, weapons, you name it, you know, it's there. So their interest to rebuild that country would be higher than their interest in Haiti. Would you agree or not?
I think that's a good question, a very valid one. But Haiti is a small country. How many millions of people? Only 6 million and a half. How much, what can we generate as far as profit for your trade deficit? Almost zero. If you go into Haiti, and I think one senator told me that, United States will have to pour money in their human resources, technology, and everything.
Would they get anything back?
What would they get?
Not much.
As far as material, not much, but as human, yes, they will. And in fact, I think Mr. Moyer will know. We have the Haitian community we have in Chicago, and I talk to people in New York or in Miami. That's the best people they can have. Even people have been hired Haitian here. They're the best workers. They're always on time, and they try to do their best. So human values, that's all we can give now. Our land has been depleted. We have the Reynolds mining, used to be in Haiti. But what they do, they never transform the material we have, the mine in Haiti. They just goes down there with the boat, they took the soil with the mine, with the metal, the aluminum in there, put it on a boat, and they did the transformation in the United States, not in Haiti. So that means the country has been deprived and sucked to the bone. In fact, that's what it is now. If you go to Haiti, good, rock, bone, that's where you see in Haiti.
Okay.
I don't think we should diminish the human quality here, though. I think that the United States, in promoting democracy everywhere, will and should continue to promote democracy and do what is necessary in order to see that democracy is restored in Haiti.
That's a good
I think
point.
that we have, I think that as a nation, we should have a commitment to the ideology as well as the finances, which always support the ideology. But without the ideology and without the meaningful support, with or without a dollar return, we lose a great deal. I think that to abandon concepts of fairness and justice would be to abandon our own concepts which have made this country very great. And just on a personal note, I know that there are forces at work in the United States trying to assure that oppression is minimized throughout the world and that democracies are able to flourish, because we have found that through the democratic system, and basically only through a democratic system, pardon me, do you find economies truly flourishing. So if on the economic end, if you really want an economy to flourish and produce as much in value of trade, etc., as it can, it should be a free economy.
That's
and
right.
most
that's
free
something-
economies
Sure.
are stem from democratic governments.
I couldn't say it any better than that. What he said is fine. We will have it because what we have, the election we have, it was thanks to United Nations and the OAS. The United States play a big role in it too. We have over 1,000 journalists and newspaper people in Haiti to supervise the election. But one thing that happened again, I forget to say that, and that's very important, that we can get from Haiti, is to stop the flow of drugs into the United States. From February 1991 till September 91, there were almost, first of all, the DEA was free to operate in Haiti. The government of Aristide took it very seriously to stop the flow of drugs, not only from Haiti to the United States, and their consumption in Haiti. That exactly, to me, that was the basis of the coup, because the military cannot survive without selling drugs,
Without selling drugs.
because their responsibility is immense. Those people have millions of dollars, and they have many, many demands from many people. So that's one thing, restoring. And now they told me every night there is about 15 to 20 small planes from Colombia, Peru, or anywhere in Latin America stopping in Port-au-Prince, and each one of them giving between $10,000 to $50,000 to those, the general or to the colonel. They get their own private airstrip for landing and repair, and they don't know where they go. After that, 1 hour or two, they just left. Definitely they come to the United States, we know that. That's one thing. Even this, the newspaper never mentioned that. And this can be verified every day.
You know, we could sit up here and I guess this should have been a 2-hour show, but we are running close out of time. I want to take this opportunity to thank you both for coming here. This conversation has been very enlightening. I guess we're going to have another hour when you come and continue or finish this discussion. But like I said, I'd like to thank you for coming. I really
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And to come back, we asked you.
Okay, thank you, TR.
Okay. At this time, we're going to go to a commentary. The views and opinions expressed in this commentary are of that of the commentator, and not necessarily, here we are, Yotar Communications or its sponsors.
Recently, the Chicago Board of Elections set a record for the number of persons registered to vote. The 20,000 registrants signed up in June represent the highest number of people registered to vote during the summer month. While those numbers are impressive, they barely make a dent in the more than 400,000 people who are still not registered to vote. Additionally, with voter apathy being so high, they barely represent any indentation in those numbers of people who are registered to vote and yet do not exercise their franchise. What must we do? Number one, we must first register more people to vote. Those of you who are 18 or will be 18 by the November election, you should get registered to vote before the deadline. Those of you who have gotten married since the last election or have changed your name, you should be re-registered to vote. And if you have changed your address, you should also re-register to vote. Secondly, we must increase voter education. There are too many people staying at home because they feel as though there are no candidates to vote for, they don't understand the issues, nor the offices the candidates are running for. If community organizations would increase the level of voter education, in addition to voter registration, we may be able to increase the turnout on Election Day. This has been Billy Montgomery and my personal view.
It is now that time in our program where we recommend to you our book of the month. And the book that we recommend this time is called Black and White Styles